Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's go, baby. A little rapid fire on a Monday.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that Notre Dame's Blue-Gold game will be held April 12th.
Awful. It's awful. Because
do you have something going on April 12th?
Yeah, I do. That's why it's always about me, Sean. It's always about me. I will be in Hillsdale, Michigan, for their spring game on that day. So it's terrible timing.
Playing in it, Willie.
No, but they want all the recruits, the signees to be there.
Well, you need to just let him go by himself. You've got work to do, Vince. This is an important Blue-Gold game.
I may. At this point, I may. Maybe that'll be the first time he drives up there on his own,
next spring we'll forgive you. This spring, come on, man. You got work to do.
I know. Well, I don't know anybody playing in this game. No, this spring is actually very important for Notre Dame because there's some very high-profile positions that are being battled for. And I'm very excited to see what happens with. I thought I had heard that the Blue-Gold game was on the 26th of April. And so I
think they changed it because I thought that I heard that as well. But they officially announced it today and said the 12th. I think that this is the earliest I can remember them doing a Blue-Gold game. And
very early. It's usually the end of April.
Because it's been around like the 20th, even the 24th over the last few years. I went back and looked at some dates just to make sure. So it's definitely been later, because there were times where it was the same weekend as the NFL draft for a few years there. So
I'm thinking there's a couple of reasons for it. Number one, I think they kind of want to just not get it over with, but with the season going as long as it did, I think they're just ready to kind of.
That's what I'm wondering. What's the spring schedule going to look like? Are they going to condense this?
Remember, it was spread out big time,
right?
Before.
Because the fact that they're getting this done, before this, basically in the second week of April instead of later in April. I'll be really curious to see what the spring schedule is going to look like. Do they?
Yeah.
Because we were speculating, do you instead of having a practice or two before spring break, do you just wait until after spring break, since you did get done so late? Or now maybe do you do a few more before spring break, and then that leaves you less after spring break because you're going to finish on April 12th now instead of a week after that.
Also think a lot of it has to do with the transfer portal window. I do. Because the transfer portal window opens on the 16th and it goes to the 25th. And with the game being on the 26th, that means the window would have been closed by the time they played the Blue-Gold game, which that's a little hairy. You know what I mean? Because Notre Dame players would have had to jump into the portal before the Blue-Gold game even started. Now, I also know that the Blue-Gold game is not the be-all, end-all for making some decisions and things like that. Things are kind of lined up at that point. You kind of know, but I think that's part of it. I think they wanted to get this done, and then for twofold. Now, players have a chance to jump in, and Notre Dame has a chance to actively participate in the portal as coaches to bring guys in.
It's a good point, because I'll just go ahead and roll into this next one, because fill in the blank. It's blank that Nebraska may do away with its spring football game because head coach Matt Rhule says he doesn't want to showcase his players that other teams could poach from them in the transfer portal.
That's one of the most paranoid things I've ever heard. I think,
but I think that this might, and I think you're exactly right. I think it's completely paranoid. Everyone has to do it. So everyone's going to start canceling spring games because you don't want to show your number 3 guard out there,
right?
Because you're worried that someone's going to snatch him up. Everyone goes through the same thing. Matt Rhule can just as easily be scouting other teams' spring games. If that's the way he's looking at it, and if Notre Dame is doing this with the portal in mind, then I think like with a lot of things, you've got to give Marcus Freeman more props in the fact that he's willing to still have the spring game. They're still going to televise it on Peacock, and he's not worried about something stupid like this, we might lose a couple guys to the transfer portal because we're playing a spring game. He's actually giving his players the opportunity to compete, play in the spring game, figure out where they are, and then if you want the portal, you can still go, the portal route, whatever it happens to be. But
it's super paranoid, and I'll tell you, Roy, if a coaching staff is making their entire evaluation on a potential transfer portal person or player on the spring game, then they're not doing their homework in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, that's weak. Like, you can't glean what you need to glean from the spring game if you're trying to bring somebody into your program. And if you are, your program's probably not going to be very good to begin with.
Right.
So that's super paranoid, man. That is super paranoid.
And I think you look at, like any of these places, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Notre Dame, Alabama, on and on and on. Like everyone has a spring game, and it's, like popularity varies based on, where your program is, but like the fans look forward to this because it's like their first glimpse of what's going to happen next season. And, at a place like Nebraska, it's a huge tradition. They might not necessarily sell the whole thing out, but they put a lot of butts in the seats for that spring game.
And look, it's also an opportunity for people to bring their families to games. I mean, let's be honest. Like this is an affordable option for, like, if I didn't do what I do, this would be the only way I could take my entire family to a Notre Dame game.
Yeah, you could take your whole family to the spring game for probably less than what it would cost for a regular season ticket. Yeah.
Yes. It's the only way that I would be able to do that. So I have a problem with it in that regard too. Like, Notre Dame's not trying to cancel theirs, right? So this isn't towards Notre Dame, but this is towards, like, local fans are getting priced out of the market, it feels like. And this is the only way for some of them to take their families to a game. And so that's a problem for me.
By the way, Salty says you're a helicopter parent.
It's not the first time I've heard that. And I tried very hard not to be that. But I think it's inevitable. I think I just have to wear it.
So the Dallas Mavericks shocked the NBA world when they traded Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers over the weekend. What's the most shocking Notre Dame related news that would make the biggest waves? Like, if this happened, the world is going to be shocked.
If on April 16th, both Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr jumped into the portal. That would do it for me. That would be like, whoa, what just happened? That would do it. That would do it for me. So I think that's the most shock, because, like, I have gotten to the point now with the transfer portal and with all of those different things, like, there's not much that's going to surprise me as far as, like, who would jump into the portal, things like that. But those two, like, at the same time jumping in would be surprising. And then the only other thing I could think of was that, like, Marcus Freeman took a job someplace else. You know what I mean?
I came up with this question, and then, like, Freeman type stuff, like, we wake up tomorrow and Marcus Freeman's announcing he's going to take an NFL job or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
But, I mean, then it took me all of about 10 more seconds to go, well, of course it's the obvious one. If we all went to bed tonight and we woke up tomorrow and they announced Notre Dame is joining a conference, like, that would be the thing that would rock. That would rock the world. That would be the one.
That would absolutely rock the world. And then, like, what would people complain about that aren't Notre Dame fans?
Literally have nothing to complain about with Notre Dame anymore, right?
Because, I mean, that would rock some worlds. There's no doubt about that. That would absolutely rock some worlds for sure. That's a good one. I didn't even think about that one. Because that's not,
like I said, it's the most obvious one that's right in front of you. Because again, I'm like going through it because, like, I came up with the question first, then I'm like, okay, what would it be when I started thinking about it? And, like, these Freeman scenarios first, and I went, oh, dummy, and I'm like, Vince is going to have this. Like, it's so obvious. And then you didn't,
because it was so obvious that I totally disregarded that as an option. Disregarded that as an option.
Yeah. That would be the one that would, like, and I think it would be kind of on this magnitude, because it's like everybody, even non-NBA fans, I think, like, when they saw this, it's like, they did what? It's like, this guy was just playing in the NBA Finals last year.
It's true. I've seen a lot of, like, I don't follow the NBA by any stretch of the imagination. Like, the last time I watched the NBA was in the 90s with, like, the Bulls. You know what I mean? Like, that's really the last time I paid attention to the NBA. But, you know, I know the players. They're like and I don't even mean the players on the teams, like the players of the NBA. You know what I mean? Like the big names and stuff like that. I've seen both sides of this. Like, oh, this is a blockbuster trade. And then I've heard, like, Luka Doncic is lazy and fat and overweight and all these other
drinks
things.
Too much,
and, like,
apparently. And
all these different things. And then apparently LeBron's going to go to the Warriors. And, like, you know, I don't know what's true, what's not, because I just don't follow it and I don't care. But it seemed on the face of it to be like a huge trade in the favor of the Lakers. Right. But people are saying that it's not. So I don't know, man. I have no idea what the deal is with this whole thing. So I know it's enough that it's all over my timeline on Twitter, which that has never happened. I've never had NBA all over my timeline. So
it took over yesterday, and I'm the same way. Andre says, which conference? Like,
Notre Dame be a founding member of the PAC. That's where they're going to head back, and they're going to put the PAC on their back. Bring that back.
Pack in the back, bring it back. All that rhyming, snapping and rhyming.
I'm feeling it.
Fill in the blank. Jack Kiser being voted the top linebacker for the American squad at the Senior Bowl is blank.
Very deserving. I think that, you know, the country doesn't know Jack Kiser the way that they should. And I'm hoping that within the NFL, you know, community, they're starting to know who Jack Kiser is, because he is a very athletic quarterback or linebacker. Excuse me. He's a very athletic linebacker who doesn't get enough credit for what he's able to do. And then obviously on top of that, he's an incredibly intelligent guy. He is football smart. He's, you know, book smart. He's all of those things. I think he could carve out a good NFL career. I'm not saying he's Ray Lewis. Like, I'm not, like, that's not what I'm saying. But there's plenty of inside linebackers in this league that he can play with and that he is just as good as. And I think he can carve out a pretty nice little career here in the NFL as an inside linebacker.
He exceeded my expectations this year because he was a part-time.
I get that.
You know, he didn't play it, you know, like he had a really, you know, I remember he had a really good PFF grade last year, but he also played the fewest snaps of any of the linebackers. And you know, obviously having him back with all the younger guys, like it seemed like that was the biggest benefit to having him. But then he goes out, ends up leading the team and tackles, plays at a really high level. And, you know, again, like he wasn't, like, the linebackers were never an issue this year. They were, you know, like here and there, you know, there were, you know, some tackles or you know, some fits and whatever else, but like they were never a liability by any means. You know, again, like, could they have played better in the national championship game? Yeah, but how much of that was game plan, whatever else? I just like, so like to see Kiser go from more of a role player last year to full-fledged in his 6th year, because you don't always see guys really blossom like that in year 6 as well. And like this was, you know, again, he was voted this by the guys on the other side of the ball, the offensive linemen, the tight ends, the running backs who had to play against him. They voted Kiser the top guy. So I think it's pretty awesome to see that. And I absolutely, you know, think that he's got a really good chance at playing in the NFL. At the very least, he could be a number 2, you know, off-ball linebacker and playing a bunch of special teams for somebody. Yeah. But, you know, like I think DK was saying, like it would make a lot of sense if you saw Jack Kiser potentially wearing those Cincinnati Bengals stripes, considering where his old defensive coordinator is right now.
Of course, I'm trying to, you know, ESPN doesn't do a very good job of telling me where teams are drafting past round 1. Because I was curious as to see, you know, where Cincinnati is on day 2, you know, where are they at day 3, like that kind of a thing, because I could see that being a very good fit. I mean, how many times did we hear Al Golden, when being interviewed, talk about how smart Notre Dame players are and how much easier it is to coach them because of how smart they are?
Right.
I could easily see him taking a flyer on a Jack Kiser late in day 2 or early day 3 that kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Depending on what the boards look like and what the needs are and all of those different things. I mean, like I said, I think he can carve himself out a nice NFL career, a nice one.
For sure. J.D. Bertrand came on toward the end of the season for the Atlanta Falcons. He was out there.
He played a bunch.
Yep. Vince, do you have a problem with Chad Bowden taking former Notre Dame recruiting staffer Zaire Turner with him to USC and trying to take more from the Notre Dame staff with him when he went out there?
I do not. I have no problem with it whatsoever. Coaches do it all the time. When they leave jobs and go to different jobs, they take guys that they're comfortable with, that know who they are and what they want to do. They take them with them. And, if Notre Dame doesn't want them to leave, you got to up the salary of the guys that are trying to leave. Like, you make a better pitch to keep them. Like, I have no problem with it whatsoever. Like, if I went someplace and I was going to be in charge of something, I would take people that know me and know what I'm due with me. Absolutely. And
you want to work who you're most comfortable with and who you're confident. Like you have that relationship. And I mean, that's part of how Marcus Freeman got Bowden to come here. And they look, if we're going to have a problem with Bowden doing it, then you got to have a problem with Luke Fickell wouldn't be very happy with Marcus Freeman then, because obviously between Gino Gadulli and Mike Brown, and Marcus Freeman has plucked some guys off Luke Fickell's staff since coming here.
So it sounds like USC money's not an issue. So, why would you not go?
Exactly.
If Chad called me up, I'd be like, where do I sign?
Sign me up. Got to go to a scrimmage, though, in Hillsdale on April 12th. So I got to work around that.
That's why I work in the private jet into my contract. Okay. I can use it whenever I need it.
So Marcus Freeman was at the Royal Rumble in Indianapolis this weekend, while James Franklin was at Penn State versus Iowa at the wrestling dual meet, number 1 versus number 2 Friday night. Which would you rather have attended?
This is not even close. I mean, not even in the same stratosphere of closeness. I'm going to Penn State, Iowa, and I'm watching real wrestling. It's not close. I would have a hard time. Like, you couldn't really pay me to go to a WWE show, match, whatever they call them. That just does not interest me in any way, shape, or form.
I've been to one pro wrestling event. It was right after high school. So that's,
okay. So it's been a minute.
Not quite to 40 years yet, but we're getting in that ballpark at this
point. I get that it's a spectacle and it's, it's entertaining and it's all of those things. And apparently Marcus Freeman enjoys it, because this is not the first one that he's been to. He's been to multiple.
I think it was like Chicago maybe last year or the year before, or something like that.
And his family,
they're laying out some cash to sit there too. So
his family was at the wrestling sectional in the afternoon, and then they were all there in the evening. So I realized Indianapolis isn't that far away, but still.
That section will probably get over by 2:00 or something like that.
3:00.
3:00.
Yeah. Final started at 1 and it went to 3.
In the Royal Rumble probably didn't start until 8,
7-ish, 8.
I'm guessing. Yeah, I don't know.
So plenty of time to get down there. And that private jet will get you places pretty quickly. So
it's very true.
Could have just been a
very true.
They weren't driving like us.
No. Because even if they're not in the jet, they might have a helicopter that could get them down there pretty quick.
Fair. Yeah, there's a lot of quicker ways than jumping in the old Oldsmobile or whatever, getting down there,
Yes. I'm with you. I'd be there. James Franklin was front row too,
Good for him.
It was because they had and that place was packed, and our buddy Irish English, reminded me Friday, and I recorded that and I watched part of it Friday night. And
did you?
Part of it Saturday, and you couldn't tell exactly, if the whole arena was full, because they had the lights down and all that. But I mean, the lower, it was packed for Penn State and Iowa, and so they would do the intros, and the guy, kind of almost like pro wrestling, where they would run out of the tunnel and they had an entryway for them to come in, and so when the Penn State guys were coming through, James Franklin was high-fiving him. Sometimes he kind of got left, hanging with the high five, but he was at least trying. out there. So, I mean, it was kind of cool to see the head coach, at a wrestling meet like that. Head coach of a high-profile program. So,
coach, just go have a seat. Just like you can cheer. We'll get you a good seat, but you don't need to be high-fiving guys that you don't even know. Like, just yeah. So that was probably a little cringy, but I still would have been there. I would have been in the front row because I really enjoy watching wrestling. I think it's fascinating. I really do. And the different techniques that are used from like little guys all the way to like the heavyweight guys. And I realize college is a different scenario than high school, but I really enjoy going to the high school meets. I really enjoy it.
Yep, for sure. Penn State dominated that meet, by the way. I was surprised how much they dominated it, but because it was number 1 versus number 2. They just took it to Iowa. Fill in the blank. The first weekend since August with no football was blank.
It was boring. It was absolutely boring. And
it really was.
Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like Sunday was boring. I didn't really have anything to do.
I know. And we got back into town early. It's like, I want to sit down.
That's
it would have been great to watch a football game because, we had a noon game at Louisville, quick trip. No football. I feel
like they could have had the Super Bowl. I feel like they could have done it. I feel like, I know they go 2 weeks, but I feel like they could have done it. But
I guess technically there was Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl and that kind of stuff.
That's true. And I forgot about the Senior Bowl, to be honest with you, because I was at the wrestling meet. I forgot about the Senior Bowl. I may try to go back and watch a little bit of that, but it's still an all-star game. They're not, I don't know. I just want to go watch Kiser, or Riley, or, RJ Oben, that kind of a thing. But, it was boring.
I agree. It was very boring. And there's going to be more of that in the very near future. But I guess we'll have spring football starting not too long.
Apparently real soon. They're going to have the game on April 12th. So,
exactly.
It's going to be coming up here. Tommy wants me to sign my kids up for wrestling. I'll be busy all the time. Probably right. But I don't know that my remaining children are really wrestlers. Although my youngest daughter, I'm trying actually to get her to do it. So it's a brand new sanctioned sport in the state of Indiana. Is girls wrestling, and lots of opportunities there, especially at the collegiate level. So
Brian says he watched me at Louisville. I don't know how exciting that was watching the.
Well, you were right there, buddy,
sit by the table
because you were. Oh yeah, I saw you because you were right behind.
I'm sure because Niele Ivey would. That's like the only downside to sitting when they put us by the bench, because at Notre Dame for the home games we're on the opposite side of the bench. That's the only downside to sitting close to the bench is the coaches, walk up and down the sideline, and so a lot of times I get a coach who is camped out in front of me, and I'm, leaning to one side or the other, trying to see what's right in front, and the officials too, because of where the officials set up. So there were some, there were more times that I couldn't see what was going on in the paint yesterday than normal, I think.
I can imagine. Well, there was one play where there was a fast break and Notre Dame scored really fast, and you're like, well, Notre Dame scored. I had my head down. I don't know who actually scored that basket or something like that. It was funny. I got a good chuckle out of that one. That was great.
I do remember that happening, and I can't remember who it was either.
I can't remember either, but it was really funny. I wanted to text you. I'd be like, but it was
By
funny.
the way, it was
it was great. I'm sure you would have figured it out long before a text got there, since I'm watching it on a little bit of a delay, and you've got like the scoring stuff and all that. But it was funny. Decaf, people have been asking about Emma Rich a lot. Come back tomorrow. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I'm sure that's going to be one of the questions.
Yes. Again, we're doing a women's basketball mailbag for tomorrow's show. They're having a lot of questions about Emma Risch, and all I can say is maybe by tomorrow I'll have something definite. I can tell you.
Okay.
But as of now, I can't say anything. So I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough.
Mailbag tomorrow, though, and we'll see what we can see. So we see what we can say, all that kind of stuff. So
beautiful.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Again, mailbag. No Notre Dame women's basketball mailbag. If you'd like to submit a question for it, you can do so in the Champions Lounge. Of course, you can also just show up here tomorrow and pop your questions in the chat like a typical mailbag. So
it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That we've got. Absolutely. Hit the like button before you leave, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.